please welcome on stage Jim Holmes. Stage is yours.
Благодаря. Доброе утро. That's about the limit of my Bulgarian. What? Something wrong? It's a hat. It's a big foam cowboy hat. You may be asking, why would somebody come to a conference of hundreds of professionals and come on stage wearing a goofy hat? Why is a key question to who we are as humans. And I think we don't use it enough. We don't ask it enough. Let's not even start asking why about our politicians. We'll stay away from that. But we don't ask it in our groups. We don't ask it of our clients. I don't think we ask it of ourselves enough. Why is really powerful, and it starts with us at the beginning of life. Who here as a parent has children? It's about a third. Or the rest of you just don't want to admit it. So for those of you that aren't a parent, have you been around small children? Some nodding heads. Maybe you've got brothers or sisters that are little, or you're an aunt or an uncle, or you've got neighbors with small children. This is my little girl. She's not so little now. She's 15. But this is when she was about 3, and we'd been out on a long hike in a national park in Montana, in the U.S., and we'd been out all day, so she was tired and she fell asleep in the car. That's my little girl. It's my baby. Ever since I was a young man, I'd wanted a daughter. I wanted a little girl to hug me and call me Papa, and I wanted to help her grow. I've been surrounded by amazing women in my life, my mother, my sisters, my wife, and I wanted a little girl to help her grow to be an awesome, strong, thoughtful person. And instead, I didn't get this angel. I got a monster. And this monster would attack me at unexpected times when I was in the middle of critical things, and the monster would attack me and not let me go. Why, Daddy? Why is the sky blue? Daddy, why are there 47 different flavors of the cereal? Daddy, why are you crying at your computer? Are you working on SharePoint again? I'm sorry, I did some Does anybody here do SharePoint development? A few. Only few will admit it. I did it a long time ago. I escaped, and I never miss a chance to rag on SharePoint. So, but our children ask this incessantly, non-stop, when they're small. The start of life, these little people. And somewhere along the line, as we turn into adults, we stop asking that so often. We lose that. And that's a problem, because why is the most powerful question we have? If you think about it, one of the most important things we tend to ask as humans is, why am I here? Not just for the keynote, but the bigger picture. Why is a powerful word that we can use to explore ourselves, we can use to explore why and how we interact with others, we can use it to explore and bring the best possible value to our customers that we're working for. But we don't ask it enough. So how do we start to look at using why as something that can help us change? So for those of you, everybody here in the room, I'm guessing, is involved with software somehow. If you thought this was like a coffee seminar, I'm sorry, you're in the wrong place. How many of you have been working with software for more than 5 years? Quite a few of you, okay. How many more than 10? And I'm going to stop there because I'm old and I don't want to embarrass myself anymore. How many of you, regardless of how long you've been in the industry, feel a little nervous about the rate of change of technologies that come at us? So there's new versions of libraries, there's new tools. Since I started talking 5 minutes ago, there's probably been 3 more releases of AngularJS. I am intimidated by the explosion at the rate of change. When I started in software years ago, the rate of change was constant, but in the last 5 or 10 years, it's taken off. Do any of you feel a little intimidated about trying to figure out what to keep up with? I do. But I had to make a decision. I have 24 hours in my day. I don't know how many hours you have in yours, but I only have 24 hours a day. I work for 8, 9, 10 hours. I have 2 children, my 15-year-old daughter and an 11-year-old son, and I have to help them with homework and chores. I have a wife that I'm married to. I'd like to spend some time with her. And then in about the remaining 3 hours of the day, I actually like sleeping. So how am I supposed to keep up with all of this? Some years ago, I came to the conclusion, I can't. I just can't. So I start asking when something out there is interesting or somebody says you have to learn this, why? Why do I need to learn this? How can it help me with the work I have today or the work I might have this week? How many of you are involved in any aspect in mobile development? It's about a third. So I think mobile's awesome. Mobile is not the way of the future. Mobile is the way of the now. There are many things about mobile that I'm fascinated about. The technology, I'm a tester by trade, so I'm really intrigued with how you do effective testing on mobile without going insane because of the 9,478,062 variants of Android operating system. But I'm not working in the mobile space right now. The clients that I work for, so I work for a consulting company called Pillar Technology, and they're out of Ohio and Michigan in the United States. And we consult to other people. And currently, I'm working for a client that is in Dearborn, Michigan, in the US, and it is a global automobile manufacturing company. I'm under NDA, and I can't say the name of the company, but it's in Detroit, Michigan. It's 4 letters, and it starts with F, but I can't say anything more. It's NDA. Don't tell anybody. The teams that I'm working with right now aren't doing anything with mobile. Instead, what I'm involved with is this very challenging uplift of culture and testing techniques. And I've got to focus all of my effort on that. I don't have time to go out and learn mobile as much as I'd like to, and as much as I can see it being an advantage in the near future, but I don't need it now. Remember, I only have 3 hours a day to sleep already, so. But if I ask why do I need to learn the latest thing? Why do I need to learn that? Why? It helps me focus in. Sometimes the why is because I want to. That's okay. God, evolution, Mother Nature, whoever gave us free will, we can make choices, right? But if you ask that question, it'll help you decide the more effective things that you need to be working with. Because otherwise, you might find yourself trying to chase down more SharePoint work and end up like this. So, why is not just about us as individuals, All of us, in some form, work for customers. It may be an external customer if you are delivering products to someone. It may be an internal customer if you work as a line of business developer. Maybe you're a consultant like me and you've got customers that you're doing services for. How often are you actually asking them why? So let's take another illustration. How many times have you spent a chunk of time, weeks, months, building something, working hard on it, and you hand it off to the customer, and the customer says, it's nice. I don't know about you, but I take pride in my work. I do this, what I do with testing and software delivery, first because it got me out of SharePoint. Secondly, because I grew up as a farmer, and that was really hard work. But I do software because I love it. At my heart, I'm a little kid, and I like hooking two wires together and seeing a light come on. And software is that written large. And so we work hard, and we polish things up, and we build this neat thing, and we hand it off to somebody. And the worst thing they can say is, The opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is apathy. And when somebody's apathetic about what I delivered them, my God, it's horrible. So think about asking why and how that might help avoid that. Let's imagine a sales transaction process that we're building as part of a larger system. So we're talking with the customer, and the customer says, all right, so the transaction needs to look like this, and by the way, we need auditing on that transaction. So how many of you have ever done any kind of transaction auditing work? Very few. Wow, I'm surprised. So for those of you that have done it, raise your hand if it was easy to do. It was easy. So it's an integration thing. Auditing is not rocket science. It's not brand new technology that we have to invent. There are tools, there are approaches, there are patterns, there are methodologies. There are no best practices because there's no such thing as a best practice. It's like SharePoint. So doing auditing is kind of integration work. We've got this transaction, and we just need to latch some auditing work on there. And we could just simply do that and ship the work out to them. But hang on a second. What would happen if we started asking why about this? So conversation might go something like this. Okay, you mentioned auditing. Why do you need that? The customer might say something like, well, I need to know who did the transaction, I need to know when they did it, and I need to know what workstation they did it from, and it has to be secure. Why do you need that information about that particular user? Help me understand why you need that. I need accountability. I need to understand who was in the system doing those things. I'm acting as me and I'm acting as a customer in case you didn't figure that out. So the next question is, okay, so you're looking for accountability, but why do you need to understand that for the sales transaction? I need traceability. Now we're starting to get to something interesting because we've gone from just an audit to now something that's a bit of a process. So traceability means different things. What's the reason behind that? Why do you need the traceability? Customer might say something like, well, we need to be able to track that in case we have an actual audit where an organization from outside comes in and wants to look at the different transactions. Now we're getting to something very, very interesting. This is an outside agency coming in to look at transactions, and this should raise some concerns because we've gone from a technological thing of just tacking auditing on to now there is a significant business risk What's going on with that? So let's ask one last why. Has anybody ever heard of the 5 whys? Yeah, many of you. That's a great thing. For those of you that haven't, it's the idea of repeatedly asking why to get down to the root cause or the real need. So we've asked 4 whys, I think, unless I lost count. Now let's ask a last one. Why would somebody come in as an external agency to audit this company about this? And now the customer might say something like, well, you know, we're a financial organization, we operate in the United States, and we fall under legislation called Sarbanes-Oxley. So in the US, there's a bunch of legislation called Sarbanes-Oxley that's in place to prevent fraud, theft, bad people doing bad things in and around certain types of financial organizations. So we've gone from this customer talking just about, I just need auditing, to understanding, wow, there is something completely different here, and it ties all the way back to some significant legislation and regulation risk. So when that happens, all of a sudden now I'm going to start to talk with the customer about, this is a much different thing now. We haven't talked about Sarbanes-Oxley compliance yet, but there's a huge amount of risk, not just for this one sales transaction. Did you understand that this impacts every aspect of this entire system? And moreover, we need to step back and take a broader look, not just at the technical things here, but your overall business process. So how different is that conversation now from, I need auditing? If we had just shipped an auditing feature and we were a service company, we would have failed our customer, failed them. Why should we engage our customers? Because we need to understand what they really need, not what they want. They wanted a simple auditing thing. What they needed was compliance with a huge set of regulations that can actually have, if you don't comply with them, there's, at the worst, jail time, there's financial penalties. Is that not something much more significant than, I need auditing? But if we didn't ask why, we never would have found that. So I used 5 whys as an example, but there are many other approaches you can do there. The point being, don't take a look at just the thing in front. Try to go beyond what they're asking for to find out what it is they need. How many times have you run across that? Here's what I want. Oh, whoops, here's what I really needed. That never happens in software, right? So it's not just about features and things that we're shipping. It's also about what processes and tools a customer might use. Excuse me. It was a lot better last night with rakia, not water. As I mentioned, I'm working for a huge mega enterprise that's been in business over 100 years. And it's fascinating. And their background is not software, their background is manufacturing. We have a production line. The production line puts out so many things per hour, and they're rigid processes, and we can measure things precisely, and we can predict, and we can do all of these things, and we use a standardized tool list. And that's understandable when you're manufacturing physical things, right? You flip a switch, the production line goes, and stuff happens. Software doesn't quite work that way, does it? So there are standards and compliance things that we fall into. For instance, this company is very 1980s with their deployment methodology. So how many of you work in a continuous integration or continuous delivery environment? Oh, that's nice. That's probably half of the hands that went up. Great. For the rest of you that don't, start. So the idea is that You know, we do our software work, we check something into source control, and what do we have? We have technology. And technology can pull that out of source control. It can run a build, it can run tests, it can run quality metrics and engineering standards using tools like NCover, NDepend, SonarCube to validate that we're building good software. And we can deploy that, and then we can run integration tests so we can end up with a deployable package that we know is well tested, that's well engineered, and that hopefully is what they need, not what they want. And we can automatically move that from development to QA to UAT. Maybe at the UAT environment, we automatically run load and performance testing. And if everything passes because we have automated processes in place, and we have good human testers, remember, I'm a tester, then we can go ahead and push that out to production. And the idea is that we do that on a nearly continuous basis. At the company that I'm at, they realize that their model where they push to production once a year may be a little behind the times. So we're starting to talk to them about continuous integration, continuous deployment, and the answer is no. No. Just plain no. Why? And then it gets into like a discussion with my daughter. Because. Why because? Because. These were some of the favorite arguments I had with my daughter when she was driving me crazy. Why? Why? Because why? But it's really frustrating as a 52-year-old guy trying to ship software. So what we've had to ask is get beyond that no. Why can't we do this? What is it that you're trying to hold in place? And as with many large companies, it all goes back to risk and worry and angst. And that's not a bad thing. Those are legitimate reasons. But we start asking why. Why can't we do this automatically? Well, we have to have a human in place who literally, and this is just heartbreaking, after a build opens up File Explorer and does drag and drop onto an FTP site, and that's their deployment process. Why can't I automate that? We have technology that's been doing this for about 30 years. Well, we need to audit that process. We need to make sure that the package that we deployed was appropriately tested and meets the quality gates. If we're doing automated builds and automated tests, what do I end up with? Artifacts, evidence. I can show this many JUnit passes, this many NUnit integration passes. I can show that my WebDriver UI tests had this pass rate. I can use another tool. It's called SonarCube, if you're not familiar with it. There's tools like this for all platforms, but you set metrics. Thou shalt not have complexity of more than this. Thou shalt not have dependencies more than that. I can make rules that are gates, and we run those processes, and I end up with artifacts. And now I can take the deployable things, right, if it's Java or .NET or whatever, and I can put that into some type of an archival system like Nexus or SharePoint, and this time I'm not bashing SharePoint. And I can put those quality things along with those. And now I've got traceability. So this company's big worry, as with many companies, is we get all the way to production, and it turns out that there's some really bad thing that's wrong. And they need to trace back, not to find out who to blame, but rather to find out how to fix it and how to prevent it from happening in production again. Well, you know what? If I've taken all of these automated things and stuffed them into an archive somewhere, we find something in production. I can say, oh, wait a minute. We've got that exact binary here, and I've got all of this quality evidence right here. And then we can take that and we can look at things, and what can we get from there? I can go straight to the appropriate source code version. So for those of you that are already doing continuous delivery, continuous integration, something automated, this isn't anything new. You're used to this. But for a company that is stuck in the 1980s but trying really hard to change, they don't understand this. But if we don't ask, why can't we do that deployment, we're not going to find out those reasons, and we can't offer them the alternatives that they might need. Now, as with any large company, sometimes these are not really fast actions to happen. If you don't recognize this, there's an expression called tilting at windmills, and it comes from a play called Man from La Mancha, and it's this Don Quixote character who would go after what other people would think were futile or useless fights. And if he and his, I was going to say henchman, if he and his sidekick, Sancho, were going through the countryside and he saw a windmill, he'd get on his armor and he'd get on his horse and he'd attack the windmills. What's the point? I don't know. But it's a good illustration of sometimes fights that are difficult to win. I happen to admire Don Quixote, and I'm willing to take on those arguments of, no, you can't do that, because I just turn into my 3-year-old daughter and I start asking why until they let me do what I want. Why can't we do that? Because. Why? Because. And I'll find some way around it. Sometimes it's also easier to just do things because forgiveness is a lot easier than getting permission. Why illuminates so many things, but we have to make use of it? We don't often enough. We'll just take that specification or that requirements document that's handed down to us, and we'll take it at face value and run off. We don't ask why. We don't understand how that work fits into the broader picture of things. And that's bad service to our customers, regardless if we are a consulting firm or a product company or if we're doing something internally for another company, for our own company, rather. Why is a powerful word. Why brings out the best in us as humans. It is the core of our existence. We start asking it soon after we start to talk. Why have we forgotten its power as adults? So my little daughter has stopped asking why there are 47 flavors of Cheerios. She's grown into my big baby. She now asks amazing questions. Why do we treat each other this way? Why is this happening in the world? Take that power and bring it on to your rest of your life. Why is extraordinary. It lightens dark corners that we don't understand. It gets us surprising answers. Sometimes why might even result in the answer of, why would somebody wear a huge, silly hat? And you might find out that person was a little nervous, and a silly hat made him feel a little more at ease. Have a wonderful conference. I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you very much.